everyone, welcome back. Another week of the Health Wealth podcast. Barry's back again this week to join me. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me on again. Looking forward to it. It was great chat the last time when we're delving more into mindset and my experiences with that as a former gymnast and high-level coach. So, and my continuation of my work that I've found that are really some principles that I've found are really relevant and important when trying to improve your mindset. So, regardless of your current challenges or your lifestyle. So that was really interesting and looking forward to getting a bit more into that. But yeah, another busy week, lots happening, and of course getting there slowly and managed to get some more content out on social media. So onwards and upwards.
It's good to be busy. Good to have things to do. Yeah, it's
and yourself.
Yeah. Been keeping busy. I've been working on updating the website, and also the membership platform is getting close to being ready to launch as well, which is exciting. Looking to get that going and kind of really try to get in one-to-one. Like the social media is good, kind of putting stuff out there, but once the membership platform's kind of launched, can literally get in kind of one-to-one, face-to-face with people and actually start seeing the effects of helping people to improve their health and their life, mainly through their diet and nutrition. And I'm really looking forward to that, starting to see, helping some people out.
Yeah, absolutely. I was speaking to someone this weekend, actually, a young lady, and I was telling her about my sort of, not regime, but my structure, in terms of nutrition and the fasting, and she just couldn't kind of comprehend. She couldn't comprehend it at all, like it was almost like, what have I been listening to all this time, that I really have been kind of brainwashed in a way. And I went, well, exactly, they don't want you healthy. They want you dependent on GPs and medication and all these other things, which we all need at some point, especially if it's not lifestyle, if it's not caused by lifestyle. Of course, we need that. We need medical intervention. But we've spoke about many times that the majority of problems really can't be solved by just changing what it is that you eat and cutting certain things out, living active, exercising, and cutting out inflammatory foods. So, I was explaining my current 20 hours fast, 5 days a week, 18 hours one day, and then a more relaxed day on the Sunday, which is today normally. So but yeah, it really just opened up her whole way of thinking, and it's just great when she wanted to be enlightened by that, and she took it in, and I gave her a very simple plan. Get your 16 hours in, 8 of which you are sleeping generally, so it's only really 4 hours before waking up and 4 hours before you go to sleep that you really have to abstain from calorie intake. So if you start at 12:30, you can finish at 8:30. It's not really that difficult, It's really quite achievable, and not just gave her a range of information on things to avoid and things to focus on, and it was really good interaction. But it's amazing when somebody just keeps their mind open like that and takes it in, and is prepared to be enlightened. That can change somebody's life, and then that's a domino effect, because if their life changes, then that impacts on the people in their life as well, in a positive way. So that's really what the beauty of what we're doing here. So
yeah, absolutely. And it, like you say, it's great when you get someone like that, because the majority of people that you talk to about it, and they look at you like you're from another planet. But someone who's open to it is great, because you say, it is just about education and knowledge and what people think. You know, for the majority of my life, I thought I knew what being healthy was, and it turns out I completely didn't. And if you'll just open your mind up and be willing to say, maybe I'm wrong about that, maybe the mainstream information's wrong, and learn about it, you know, you can make a massive difference to your health and your life. Like, I feel amazing now, and I look back at what I used to eat and how I used to think was healthy. I'm like, man, how did I even think that was healthy? But, you know, like you say, it's all around you. It's everyone else thinks it, and so you go along with it, don't you? So yeah, that's awesome.
Yep, it's something that, you know, always trying to look at when I'm in a social scenario, you know, especially if it's brought up. I'll just answer it, you know, very clearly, and you know, you do get a lot of surprise looks, but that's it. We're trying to change. We're trying, you know, you don't have breakfast, really? I'm like, not for years. I don't even have a fruit bowl anymore, you know. So unless, but that's something I may have to invest in, you know, because I'm trying to you know, reduce the amount of reduce and eradicate chocolate and replace that with fruit as a sort of treat, which would be, you know, not for nutritious reasons, obviously, because I get all the nutrition from, you know, a lot of red meat, fish, organ meat as well, chicken, pork, and really the fruit is just, you know, a treat, if you will. So and probably no doubt a better one than chocolate anyway. So unless you're having dark chocolate, which has a lower amount of sugar content in it. So yeah, I'm going to be kind of, that's my next kind of thing to work on, you know, the after, the post dinner sort of snacking, because I really want to try and get, although I'm not having that much, I want to bring it down even another level still. And probably my plan about, I would say, the beginning of May is to try going full carnivore. So that the reason being holiday, 6th of June, and I want to be in even better shape going into that, and that's something that I want to try and work towards. So take out the carbs completely, even though I'm having very little, and eradicate the sugar as well. And because I've got that basis already with the fasting, and the majority of my diet's, you know, protein, it shouldn't hit me too hard. It should be able to adapt to it, you know, quicker than someone who was coming from, you know, that, you know, 5 fruit and vegetables, 3 meals, 4 meals a day sort of thing, and the full carnivore. Their body's not going to be as prepared for it as mine. So yeah, that's the next thing. But start of May, hopefully I will be in that position that I can eradicate those things fully, and see how it goes, and coincide that with a more intense, although I train a fairly intense, you know, day to day. Just make that a little bit more intense, tweak out 1 or 2 things, and hopefully by start of June I'll have, you know, reached the level that I want. So
yeah. I mean, you'll see good results from that. Like, carnivore is amazing for that, and you won't. And people think, especially people who kind of are into fitness and train a lot, people always worry about having a lack of energy when you drop carbs. But you don't get that. Fat, like, the one thing you have to do on carnivore, if you have no carbs, you have to get enough fat. You've got to make sure that you have plenty of fat, because fat's the key. Like, fat is so good for you. It gets such a bad name, but it's so good for you, and that's where you get all your energy from, and it gives you a better form of energy, because carbohydrates is a short-term burst of energy. Fat will just give you energy. You just keep going and going. You don't have any peaks and troughs. It just keeps going. I've actually just started for this month. I mean, I kind of gradually came into it too, kind of similar to what you do, and kind of bit by bit, as I learned more, I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to eat that anymore. I'm going to eat this, and I don't want to eat that. And then for April, I was pretty much carnivore, but I would just have little bit of fruit and yogurt sometimes. But from April 1st, so yesterday, for the whole month of April, I'm going to do literally 0 carb and just see how I feel. And if I feel better like that, I might continue it. If I think I felt better with a little bit of carbs, then I might go back to that. It's just like there's a base optimal diet for humans, but obviously the exact intricacies of it are not the same for every single person. So you got to kind of, as we're doing, is experiment yourselves. Like, we have the knowledge, but then we can go and see, okay, do I feel better on this? Do I feel better on that? Some people eat once a day and that's great for them. Some people will eat carnivore and still eat 2-3 times a day. It's what works best for you. So yeah, no, I think you'll see great results when you go full carnivore with that. It definitely works a lot. And in terms of like fat loss on your body and weight loss, like, it's been insane what I've seen with being on it. It's crazy. But I'm probably the leanest I've ever been.
Yes, actually tonight I just had steak by itself, which is rare, which is rare for me, but it was actually fine. I don't feel the need for an accompaniment, but the healthy fats are spot on about that, because I mean that's a great way to break the fast for starters, but it's also so necessary for your nutrition and maintaining a healthy gut and a strong immune system. Especially if you are dropping those carbs. And no better than eggs and avocado, in my opinion. So it's certainly, from what I've read, that is the case. I know there is a little bit of, there's a point of view out there that too many eggs isn't great, but I think if you get that, I don't personally subscribe to that. I think the sweet spot is about 3 to 4 per day, and I think if you're having that post dinner, that just sets everything up really nicely.
Yeah, eggs are great. That's one of the things. I'll eat just beef steaks, some other meats, like some mince, some chicken, and sometimes some pork. But eggs definitely are what I have with it as well. And I do have butter and salt. So some people on carnivore will not have butter, but I like to have a good amount of butter on my steaks.
Butter's good.
Yeah, and it makes it taste good too. So
yeah, absolutely. And butter is what I would put in the pan if I didn't have beef dripping, which is an absolutely exceptional ingredient to have, for cooking meat especially, or cooking anything really. It's actually more efficient and healthier than olive oil. But in terms of the eggs, a bit of butter, is great. Actually, quite a bit of butter is good for you. So, and I've also started. I used to maybe about a couple of months ago, I would sort of grate some Parmesan. Now I've kind of experimenting with goat's cheese as well, which is just it's great for you. That's another really healthy fat right there, and. It's a bit on the pricey side, goat's cheese, but it's definitely worth it. It's so tasty, especially when you can just mix it in just the right amount into your eggs, and with some paprika, salt and pepper. Fantastic.
That's it. Like you say, it's finding what works for you and what you're happy with. Like a good ribeye steak with butter and salt on, I could literally eat that meal happily for every meal for the rest of my life. Like I love it. It's what works for you. Some people maybe decide they couldn't part with that and they'll have to work some other stuff around, but it's seeing what works for you.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And it's definitely I think being creative is something that's very important, and there's just so much knowledge and information out there, literally on your phone. I mean, you can find tons of things to make, even if it's you don't really need a wide variety of ingredients, especially if you are going like full carnivore or 85% protein, you don't need that many, but the sort of base ingredients, if you will, there's so many things so many recipes that you can do it in so many different styles. You can mix and match different ones, seasonings especially, I had a pork fillet the other day, and I had actually a bit of I had an onion, just chopped it up, put it around the side. I seared it first, both sides in the pan, and then I put it into a dish with just some onions sprinkled down the side, but I'd had it seasoned with, salt, paprika, pepper. I think there was some oregano on there as well, and I had a double cream, and I found this little recipe. So perhaps it wasn't the best one health wise, but it wasn't a huge amount. It was just something over the pork as a little treat. Cream, Worcester sauce, and Dijon mustard actually, with some chopped garlic. Just mixed it up and poured it over the pork, foil on, into the oven, 35 minutes out, boom, tasted delicious, So there's for those with a creative mind, there's plenty of great ways to have your meat, and it doesn't need to be too time consuming either, especially when you become more experienced.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't take long. I mean to have like steaks like I do most of the time. It's not that long to make them. You get them on a nice hot pan, cast iron pan, and depending on how well done you like them, of course, it's not that long to cook at all. Easier than most meals, so it's definitely not more time consuming or more difficult, like you say.
For sure. I was over at my older brother's last week, and he's got a fantastic thing going with bone broth, which is very healthy, especially you can get bones and, do them in the slow cooker, just let them cook, over 8 to 10 hours, and use it in a dish with, it was pork shoulder and eggs within the actual broth with a small helping of like vermicelli noodles. So it was almost like one of those, it's like kind of the type of things you see in Wagamamas, it was like 3 or 4 things in one dish, So normally you have your eggs before it, but the eggs actually came within the meat with the swirling in the bone broth. And I had a taste of it. It was just out of this world. It was brilliant. It looks quite intricate, and complex, but actually when you break it down, and you get the order right. It's really quite simple, but it's super nutritious. And I think combining those sort of things, instead of having them separate, it's nice to mix it up.
Yeah, definitely. I think overall nutrition is a whole lot simpler than we've made it. With just the plethora of random ingredients and foods that have been made and given to people. Plus, even a lot of health and fitness influencers massively overcomplicate it, because it probably keeps them in a job, keeping people not knowing what they're doing. But it's that overall nutrition is actually very simple. You have a couple of things that are good for you, and like you say, you just play around with them and do what you need. And it's overall pretty simple.
You can literally eliminate 2/3 of the supermarket aisles,
Yeah, at least,
which saves you time. Occasionally I'll actually walk through the cereal aisle, and I'll have a look to my left and to my right, and I'll just sort of laugh out loud at how how irrelevant it is now. It's how unneeded it is, but that's the world that.
The food industry is all about profit. It's not about health. It's what I always try and say to people. And the health industry as well is the same. I mean, they're basically in business together, the health and the food industry, because the food industry makes a ton of money by giving everyone cheap, processed, unhealthy food, which then allows the pharmaceutical industry to make a ton of money treating people for stuff they don't need to be treated for, with drugs which make them even more unhealthy. So they're both raking in the money, and we're all here getting more unhealthy. So that's why we got to try and educate people and get them out of that vicious cycle, and let them take back control of their health and their diet, and see how we can actually live.
Sure. And something else that I actually almost miss a sandwich. Like I think I'll treat myself to one although my body won't see it as a treat at all, certainly my taste buds and, you know, my mind will enjoy it for a few minutes, maybe in a couple of weeks. But this day-to-day sandwich eating as well is it's like such a traditional thing, you know. You get your sandwich for work or for school, and you know, it's just something that, you know, it's unthinkable for me to go back to that now. It's really, I mean, bread is really, I mean, it contains a lot of yeast and wheat, which is, you know, not good for you at all. You know, it's that's the sort of things that that cause inflammation in the stomach. But people will see, you know, nice, thick, wholesome brown bread, you know, with ham and tomatoes, you know, and think that they're on the right side, you know, that they're actually pretty healthy, but they're nowhere near it, you know. It's that's inflammatory food with a smile right there. So
yeah, definitely. Bread is actually one thing that I've not missed at all. I haven't eaten bread in quite a long time now. I know some people are massive on bread, some people absolutely love it, but yeah, I've not. That's one thing I've not really missed is bread. That's been fine to go without. I think one thing I found as well, which you might find with kind of dropping off the chocolate and stuff, is when I stopped eating sugar, I found that everything else I was eating started to taste a lot better too, because the sugar just kind of becomes, that's all your body can taste, and it kind of kills your taste buds, just the sugar. And once you get off it, after a bit, everything else just begins to taste so much better. That's what I found. So I think after a bit, at first it's hard kind of cutting the sugar, but after a bit, when everything else tastes so much nicer, I feel that then if you can put up with it for a few weeks, it starts to become a lot easier.
Sure, I look forward to getting to that point. I would say that's my fizzy juice, soft drinks. I can quite easily go without. I'll normally only have it with a certain amount with alcohol, or just as a sort of treat. But day to day, I don't get pulled by. I don't get that doesn't, you know, pull me in any sort of way as much as chocolate does. So if I can actually drop down the crease and then eradicate the chocolate, I'm pretty much there, you know. So save it, crisps aren't as big a pull for me either. So but yeah, it's you know, I've come a long way. I've experienced huge amounts of benefits. Mental energy is through the roof, and I've still got some way to improve. So and that's the great thing. We can always build and get better. And you know, when it comes down to nuances, especially, you know, so chocolate is the next thing and sugar to eradicate that. And yeah, I'm sure if I apply the same sort of mindset and discipline that I've applied to everything before this, then it should work the same way. As you say, after a few weeks, you will get used to it, and you'll just not miss it after that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sugar is a drug. That's what it is. It gives you the same reaction in your body that drugs give. I'm pretty sure that there was actually some research done on, it might have been on mice or something like that, where they actually found that the sugar gave a stronger reaction in their body than cocaine. So once you get through the kind of withdrawals at first, it becomes a lot easier to be without it. And I still, like, if I now and again, on rare occasions, if I've earned it and might set myself a challenge, then I'll still have like a sweet treat. I might earn something and have it, and then I'll be back to nothing again. So it's not like you have to never have it again. I mean, obviously, if you want to do that, you can, but you know, once you've got it under control and you can control how you eat, then you can easily just have it as a reward, and then you're straight back into your normal life.
Yeah, and I think that would that will also really help kids as well, especially when it comes to maintaining attention and, you know, this whole stigma around ADHD. You know, I think there was someone very prominent that I read that a lot of these cases are actually, misdiagnosed. It's not that they've just got this ADHD, it's because of the amount of sugar that they're intaking and the amount of distractions around them that's affecting their focus. That's a big factor, and the problem that we have, especially with the younger generation centering around sort of lack of discipline, lack of focus. It starts with, the amount of sugar that they're having, especially in these foods that are being packaged up in very attractive marketing schemes that actually may be portrayed as healthy, but are actually not.
Yeah. I mean, ADHD really is not a medical condition. It's a metabolic and lifestyle condition. It's completely down to their environment, the way they're raised, and what they're fed. Like they're given a bowl of cereal in the morning, which is sugar. They're sent to school. They're given like a sugary treat at school. They try and make them sit still. And in fact, I actually, a while back, I was listening to something really interesting on ADHD, which was we're talking about with kids that actually I think it was something about, it wasn't that their attention is understimulated. It was actually that it's overstimulated. And it's kind of the opposite of what people think, that they can't concentrate on stuff. It was almost that they were too hyper-focused with all the sugar and everything in their body, that they were so hyper-focused that they then couldn't do anything. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was quite interesting, but there's kind of more intricacies to it than people think, but it's definitely not something that's solved by putting them on pills. You're affecting the rest of their life. You basically just all those pills do is basically just try and turn them into a robot and just dull everything down. So all of their emotions, all their thoughts, everything about them just dulled down to nothing, which you don't need. And I also was listening to a podcast the other week. They were talking about health with kids, and about even in kids' medicines. Kids' medicines like say antibiotics or whatever, they come coloured, and they have a food dye in them, and you basically can't get them without the food dye, and that food dye is basically terrible for them. And lots of kids have had, like, when they have the medicine, parents will notice the difference, their behaviour and everything, but yet they won't give that medicine to kids without the food dye. Like, why does it matter what colour it is? It doesn't even change the taste, and it's just, they're just poisoning kids. You've got to be careful. I'm trying nowadays be so much more careful of what I give to my kids, and I kind of look back on their earlier years before I kind of knew all this, and think about all the stuff I maybe gave them, thinking, okay, I shouldn't be feeding them this and that, and got to try and improve it as you're improving your own diet too. But yeah, it's the diet of kids nowadays is not helpful for them at all. Yeah,
and as you say, you're talking from experience with your own children, and you've got to marry the all the aspects together, and make sure that it's balanced out. And I always think it's a bit tricky with kids, because they are growing and they do need a certain amount of food to help their joints and their muscles, and because they're growing, their muscles are getting bigger, they're going through different their body's going through various different stages, through puberty and everything. So the amount that they're eating, whether, like, for example, at breakfast and lunch no longer exists for me. It's no longer required. My body's completely adapted to that 4-hour window. But for a child, for example, eating, in terms of what they're eating, that's pretty solid, pretty clear on what we should be feeding our children, what we shouldn't be. But do you try, is it a bit tricky to get them, do you still feel that it's best that they eat 3 times a day, or do you think that they need their breakfast in the morning because they are growing and they still are going through that stages of maturity? Or is it really just in terms of what they're eating, or if they're not hungry, they can go to lunchtime?
Yeah, so I do keep them, they eat more regular than I do. Like you say, with kids growing, I think they do need more regular kind of sustenance maybe than an adult.
Yeah.
And the other thing that is hard with kids is if like I'd have had all this information and known it like when they were born, before they were born, it would be a lot easier because you could start them eating the right way. The problem is with kids, all like baby food, kids food, as soon as they go from milk to anything that's solids or whatever, it's pure sugar. All baby food, like the tins of it and the packets, everything, it's just pure sugar. So they're basically raised on just sugar. That's what they're accustomed to. So then trying to transfer them from that to more of like a meat-based diet can be harder. So my oldest is 6, youngest is 3. So the older one he's a lot better. The younger one is improving as well, but at first it was kind of a bit difficult to get them to eat more like that. But they're doing better all the time. I try and I set them a good example. I tell them about why we eat meat as well, why it's healthy for you. But it's kind of a different texture. They've kind of grown up on this food, which you can just food nowadays. You just basically pour it in your mouth. You don't even need to chew it. So now they've got to chew up some meat, and it's a different consistency. So it's kind of harder. So if you could start your kids off, there's actually like a lot of people who are carnivore. You can basically as soon as a kid can hold something in their hand, you can actually start giving them bits of meat and whatever, and they'll basically just you have it bigger that they can't fit it in their mouths, they can't swallow it, and they'll basically just kind of chew on it, suck on it, because they haven't even got teeth, get some of the nutrients out of it. Obviously you'd have to give them milk and whatever else as well, but if you can start them there young, then it's going to be kind of easy for you after that. But transferring from the standard diet to the kind of one in kids is a bit harder, because obviously as adults we can make our own decision and we're grown up and whatever. With kids it's a bit different, it's a bit harder. So it's been a gradual process with them, but they're getting better and better all the time. And I notice a difference in their behavior as well when they eat well, as composed. Sometimes they might have a day where they eat stuff which is not that great from, and you can then see the difference in their behavior.
Yeah, for sure. That's an interesting take. It's in terms of the children's nutrition and their regularity of eating is something that I'm not too clued up on, obviously, because I don't have that experience yet. But no, it's quite interesting what you say, because they are in a phase of they're growing and they're having to adapt all the time. So I think the way that that you've got it set for them is that you're starting them early and you're starting those good habits early, so that they'll find that easier to maintain as they get older. And it's really just it's a case of making sure that they listen to you and that they take in the advice and not get influenced by the other kids who are as you say, on sugar from straight away pretty much, and that just builds and perpetuates that they become completely reliant on it, and it's just not conducive for a healthy lifestyle at all. And I think this is where that you find that when they come out of the teenage years and their early 20s, that they're already overweight, because that is how their body has that's what their body's been reliant on, and it's producing fat, and they haven't had enough of the good stuff either to kind of counter that. So the fact that you're setting that frame early is fantastic, and I think I think it depends on the area maybe, or the community that you have, but I think if other parents are aware of that, then they should be enlightened and they should want to do the same sort of thing for their children, because ultimately that will just benefit them as massively as humans, and as adults, when they grow up. If you can set that sort of frame early, then they're more likely to go on and be fit, be healthy, be in shape, and ultimately be more successful and more happy as well. More happy, more confident, more content. And not look for quick fixes of dopamine as well either. So I think starting it really early is very, very important.
Yeah, definitely. Again, people always underestimate how much of a link there is between just what you eat and your mental state, your mood, everything about you, like you listed there. Like just just the little things you do in what they eat, and maybe the way that you discipline and you bring them up and set the frames for them, will make a huge difference in the type of person they are. As a parent, you need to be aware that every single thing you do is shaping the type of person your child will become, and you need to think about that. One of the things that I really hate the most, that really frustrates me and annoys me the most, is seeing an obese child.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That kills me. That's it's basically, in my eyes, it's pretty much child abuse. Like, a child can't decide for themselves what's healthy and what's not. They're going to eat mostly what they're given and what they enjoy. And as a parent, and to be honest, especially for a child, you don't even have to have all the knowledge and be amazing at nutrition just to keep your child not obese. I mean, you go back
simple.
Yeah, you go back 40 years, and most people weren't, eating carnivore and whatever, but kids weren't obese. Like, you don't have to be a nutritionist to keep your child in shape. And now you see the amount of them obese, and just lazy parenting, and you're massively decreasing the future quality of their life, because obesity is something that's going to have knock-on effects throughout their life, mentally and physically, for them. And that, it's one of the things I really, really can't stand that, and I really get annoyed when I see that. Parents have got to take some responsibility for that. And that's another area where I want to kind of educate people as well. Kind of want to target people with health conditions that we can really make a difference in their life. And I also kind of want to target and do some specific work with parents on how to feed their children and stuff like that, which some of it I'm learning with my own kids, and as I go, I'm learning more and putting it into practice. And I just think that's really important, because obviously, children are the future, as was it Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston, someone said in one of her songs. So I mean, we need to be taking care of their nutrition, and also teaching them. Like I say, kids are smarter than a lot of adults I see treat kids. I mean, it sounds stupid to say treat kids like kids, because kids are kids, but a lot of adults treat kids like they're nothing. Like, I'll always talk to my children like they're adults. I'll explain stuff to them, and they understand and take in a lot of it, and they can, repeat it back, and they'll come out with stuff, and I'll be like, oh, well, you took that and you remembered that. And I think if you teach them, they're more likely to do it. If you just say, right, you're not eating this anymore, you're eating this, and they say, why? And you say, well, you just are. I think it's better to speak to them as human beings and say, look, we're going to eat some more of this, because this is a lot better for us. It's going to make us healthy. It's going to make us strong. We're not going to get ill, and we're not going to eat so much of that, because that's not really that good for you. But, you can have it as a treat sometimes. And I think if you explain it to them, people don't give kids the credit they deserve for how smart they are.
Yeah, they're actually very perceptive, and they take a lot of information in that, even subconsciously, that you perhaps think will go over their heads, but they do take it in, and they do see, that does shape them, that does shape the way they think. And yeah, that's I think that's a fantastic initiative to have, in terms of educating other parents and trying to improve the even just on a local level. Obviously we want to have as wide a reach as possible, and that things like talking on this on the podcast is fantastic for that, but also starting at a local level and building that sort of rapport and that sort of base with parents in the community, and then building it up from there. That's I think it's a fantastic thing, and absolutely really necessary, because they are the next generation, and they're the generation that are going to be potentially looking after their parents one day, or looking after, creating a society that looks after elderly, as well. So we need to make sure that, and of course, creating legacies, and fulfilling the potential that you have for them as parents, So the basics are the most important, making sure that they have a low amount of sugar, and that any sugars, given to them as a sort of treat, if you will, and make sure that they eat well, that they're and that they understand why that is the case, understanding why you're feeding them more of this and less of this, and getting them to actually use their brains that way, getting that critical thinking in early as well, as opposed to just giving them orders, and expecting them to, just go along with it. If they understand the reasoning behind it, that'll just elevate their critical thinking, massively as well, and improve their nutrition, their health in the process, and negate the possibility of being overweight, because when they're overweight at that age, that's really dangerous, and it's very difficult to shake off as you get into your teenage years. And unless, I mean, of course you can, it can be, it can be eradicated, but it will take a lot more work. If you start the right way early, then it's a lot easier to maintain that, and for me, I couldn't have had a better. I'm so lucky to have had the best start. I was never fed processed foods or these baby foods. It was always fresh food, and obviously, encouraged to be very active as a kid. And from 8 years old, I was pretty much, entered the world of gymnastics, and there was no chance of. It was. I was in shape, very fit, very strong at a young age, so I had that massive advantage there. But I want to pass that on now, and obviously part of being a gymnastics coach, helps me do that, and doing, that on this podcast, for example, increasing awareness.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. Yeah, and I love, going back to the earlier point you made about critical thinking, that's another reason I like to explain stuff to them, because I like that they ask questions. Like, kids are inquisitive in general, aren't they? Kids are, and we kind of lose that as we get to adults. And that's because as you grow up and in school, and parents, they don't want kids asking questions. They find it annoying, and they kind of dull that out people. And that's why then we end up in a society nowadays where people get told to do something that makes clearly no common sense in terms of health, and people go do it. So I love that they ask questions, and I'm more than happy to explain stuff to them. And we shouldn't want to get rid of that from kids. Kids being inquisitive, that's how they learn, and we should embrace that. Even though, don't get me wrong, sometimes the questions can get annoying, but that's just part of having kids. You've got to put up with that. And I think as well, we, like you said, there's a nutrition side, and then the other side of it with kids is kind of teaching them how to be a good person and teaching them that discipline. I think I mentioned it last week about with ours now, with when they want screen time, they have to earn it through doing exercises, and they get once a week they can have a sweet treat. So they understand that, it's normally at the weekend, like this week, Friday night. I can't remember whether the wife had got something, or that they asked if they could have their treat. So I said, okay, but you understand that if you have it tonight, you don't get it on the weekend. And they were fine with it, understood it. They had their treat the Friday, and they knew that was it for the weekend. So it's just kind of instilling in kids that stuff has to be earned, and that kind of discipline, and just a general outline of how to be a decent human being. You don't have to try and teach them to be Mother Teresa. Just if you could teach them how, the basics of being a decent human being, keeping themselves healthy, that's going to benefit the future societies. And like you alluded to there, as a parent, the child is going to be the one who looks after you when you're old. If they're in a complete physical, mental mess because of how you raised them, they're not going to be much good at looking after you. I mean, they might not even be there anymore if you've messed their health up completely, which is obviously a horrible thing for anyone to have to do. Any parent to have to bury their child is horrible. So, people need to think about that and the seriousness of things they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good points there. And making them understand, responsibility and accountability early on is really important, and the value of things as well. There's I got, for example, I was on holiday years ago, and my cousin's daughter, only 7, was bringing all the family were outside, and she was bringing the food trays and things and glasses, back and forward, and asking, already asking, the uncles and the aunts, would you like another beer? And they would just go bring over. And I just thought that was a really great, touch, that they have, they were able to contribute, they weren't just sort of, okay, the iPad maybe wasn't around back then, but they could have easily gone and amused themselves with their Game Boy or whatever it was. But instead, my cousin actually said, here's your job, take this out to uncle, here, and take this out to your auntie here, and be productive, and later on you can get your treat, so it's making them feel a part of it, but also using their brains and making them feel, like they were making a contribution, and just the value of things as well, as you say, like they got a nice ice cream after that, and that was earned. So but yeah, children, it's so important that they have a really great start. And I think one of the big things right now is mental illness and the whole stigma around mental illness and depression. If you are in healthy, really good, if you're in good shape, you're not carrying any fat, you're well, you carry yourself well, you're well put together, you work hard, your nutrition's on point, then it's a lot less likely that you'll feel depressed, so that's something that they need to start with. Get to the gym, work out, change your diet up, see what it is about your lifestyle that's bringing you down, eradicate those things, and then see how you feel, instead of immediately presuming that you are infected with something that you can't do anything about, and here's some pills again,
Yeah, physical and mental health are completely intertwined. That you can't have one without the other. They affect each other. So if you improve one of them, you're going to improve the other. A couple months back, I did a little series on how to be your own doctor and talked a bit about that, and it's so true. Like the majority of anxiety and depression, you could cure it by just improving their diet and lifestyle, and it'd be completely cured instead of being put on some drugs and just left on them for the rest of their life. I know quite a few people that have been put on these drugs for depression, and the other thing is that they're meant to be a short-term thing, and they're people left on them for like 20 years. The doctor doesn't check, doesn't say does anything need, and just left on them like, well, that's you now. And obviously then they get terrible side effects from the drugs as well, which then lead to other conditions, and the whole medical system really is upside down anyway, and it's not really in a great place, and not a thing I like, which is why I'm trying to teach people how they can avoid the medical system and look after themselves, and then where you're at then.
Yeah, absolutely. Take the responsibility and accountability, and do your own research, as well. And as you say, there's a lot of wealth and knowledge and information out there, and making sure that not having to be reliant on medication. That's just it sets a really bad precedent to begin with. Your medication should be your food, that your diet, the things that you're putting into your mouth, and the things that you're not putting into your mouth as well. That's your medication. That sirloin steak there, that's my medication, if you will. And I can't ever remember not feeling good about myself after I've had a meal like that. Whereas if I have a sausage supper, it tastes great at the time, but afterwards I actually do feel depressed. It sits there, and my energy just drops. My enthusiasm just drops. My sort of zest, for what it is, or my level of productivity, wanes. So very important, what we're eating and what we're drinking, because it absolutely does affect your mood, and then if it affects your mood, then it's going to affect your your efficiency and your productivity, and then that's going to impact on your work, your lifestyle, and also your potential as well, because you could have a lot of potential in something, but if you don't have the basics to begin with, and also we talked about a bit last week about we talked about mindset, and also how important it is to have a sort of a strategy and a plan as well. If you don't have that, then you're lost, and then all of these things just combine to make somebody feel depressed. So it starts with the basics and not having to be relying on medication.
Yeah, definitely. That's what the whole thing. I mean, this little series I've done, How to Be Your Own Doctor, I'll probably revisit at some point, and I'll probably use a decent amount of it on the membership platform in terms of going to make some kind of educational videos and stuff to teach people. And it's basically based off, if you line up basically your diet, your sleep, your exercise, and your kind of stress and mental health, like you get those 4 things in check, you're not going to need a doctor, and people need to look at it as they are their own doctor. And and like you said about a plan, if you have a plan for all those things, don't just wander through thinking, I might do this, I might do that. Like, plan, this is what I'm going to eat. The worst thing you can do for eating is, if you're eating well, is if you don't plan. You get in one day, you've had a long day and you're really hungry, and you're going to go for the easiest thing, aren't you? And it's going to be something not great. So plan stuff with that. Exercise, have that planned out, because it's very easy for you to decide, I'm not going to exercise today. Have it a set plan with your diet, your fitness. Sleep, if you can have a set structure around your sleep, is going to help you too. And in terms of your mental health and stress, you need to have a plan around that too, and a structure. And you need to be willing to cut off toxic people and toxic situations, and know when to kind of cut yourself off from things and build up your mental strength. So yeah, it's all really, really important. It all comes together, and that's what we're going to be aiming to teach people and educate people on, and hopefully see some really great success stories and make a big difference in people's lives, which is kind of the whole thing that we're aiming for with this podcast and with the whole the whole brand. So I mean,
looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's we kind of went slightly off track on. We were going to discuss 1 or 2 other things, which we'll save for another week. We were going to talk a little bit more on some other mindset stuff, but we covered important stuff today. Kids, very important, and as parents, we've got to do our bit to help them and to give them the right nutrition. So anyone who listens to this and wants to know more, then definitely follow the socials. Join the Facebook community. By the time you hear this, the membership platform might be up and running. You can try and join that. We'll link everything in the description, and just take that personal responsibility to look after the future of your kids and raise them properly. And thank you very much for joining me again.
Not a problem, Ryan. Thanks a lot for having me on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed imparting the knowledge and experience that I've got, and I'm really looking forward to giving that value and helping people. And I think that I've no doubt that the subscriptions will be tremendous value for and tremendous value for money and rate of return in terms of what they're going to get out of it, because it really is the complete opposite of what they have been told, and it's programmed, if you will, into their brains from quite a young age. So it's just about reversing that and getting enlightening people and giving that value. So I think there will be some tremendous success stories out of this. I've no doubt about it, and I look forward to contributing to that. So thanks for having me on, and I look forward to being on again in the future.
Yeah, that's great. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you on. We just want to help people, and it's more of a knowledge problem than everything else that people have, and we just want to get that knowledge out there to them. So thank you everyone for listening. As I said, we'll put all the links for getting in touch and contact in the description for everyone. So if you have any questions, please do get in touch. We'll see you next week for another podcast, and let's get optimal together. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, or you'd like to appear on it, then please contact us at hwpoduk@gmail.com, on our website, which is healthwealthuk.com, or on any of our social medias, which are at hwpoduk. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family, and we will see you next week.